Hello guys, Sean here. Today we're doing another Beyblade discussion, this time on UX, the newest thing to come out of Beyblade X. So, the news came out about a week ago, I've already made a video on that, but I want to make this video kind of talking about UX and whether or not I think it's really worthwhile. I don't mean this in whether or not it's good, it's more just, does it evolve from BX beys enough? So just to explain, BX apparently means basic X, while UX means unique X. So, does this kind of warrant a new name? Is it overly interesting? Is it worth it in that regard? So, let's go ahead and start off with kind of the changes to each part. So, first up, the bits seem a bit more dynamic. So, for example, Excel is a slightly larger version of flat. Hexa seems to be a weird kind of almost edge-like the burst driver. Yeah, Edge. We all know about Edge. That thing is a meme. But it seems kind of similar to that, except six-sided instead of four-sided. So yeah, Hexa is weird, but it's different, I guess. And then there's also Disc Ball, and yeah, the actual ball itself almost looks a little bit more cone-like, but it is still a ball. With that said, that doesn't seem crazy, but each one has a bit more to it. Excel and Hexa both have much larger gears, so they will be faster on the extreme line, of course, having kind of 16 spokes rather than the regular 12, which is actually a pretty big deal, so they should be much, much faster. So Hexa probably won't be able to use it as much, more of a counterattack potentially, while Flat will definitely be getting to it a lot and just being an extremely fast bay overall. Disc Ball has kind of this big ring around it that will probably help it out with stamina and potentially life after death. And it may interfere with the extreme line a bit, so it might not actually have as much extreme line use, which is very interesting. Regardless, it seems like the bits are trying to be a bit more dynamic. They're trying to, do a little bit more than just kind of a basic bottom, and those bottom parts kind of being repeated quite often. So I think the bits are looking better. Nothing crazy, but they're just a little bit more dynamic, right? Then we get to ratchets. Ratchets are nothing really crazy. 160 does have kind of a larger point to it, but I think that was kind of to be assumed with something like a one-sided ratchet. It is still a new thing. I guess 1 is kind of a more extreme thing, because obviously, usually the contact points are meant to kind of make sense for the amount of, contact points that they have for the sake of, needing to burst the bay. So, of course, if you have 1, it has to be a bit larger. And, again, that's a little more extreme. So, okay, it's a bit more dynamic. Cool. Then there's, of course, 370 and 570. We already had these contact points, but these are both with the 70 height, a new height that we hadn't had before. Cool. It's in the middle, so it's nothing crazy, but yeah. The ratchets, it seems like they might be willing to go a little bit further, but it's at the same time, it's not that crazy either. Yeah, anyway. Moving on to the blades. So, it looks like the blades are trying to be a bit more dynamic. They're trying to do more. A little bit, like obviously Drawn Buster has kind of the sword-like design to it. Hell's Hammer has kind of the metal wheel, like the screw shape to it, kind of like with this weird wavy pattern. Wizard Rod, I guess you could argue like the 5 holes in it are like for an airflow stamina thing. It's basic, I know, but still. It does seem like these shapes are trying a little bit harder though, but also there's kind of this weird plastic ring inside, it almost looks like. It's like a little bit of a different color, but it's meant to kind of pair up with the prongs on the inside. Previously, these were metal, but now they're plastic of a bit of a different color. So that's interesting. Yeah, it's more of an aesthetic change. I guess you could argue more outward weight distribution, though. Cool. And then there's a couple changes to the gear chip. First up, it no longer spins. Yeah, and then also there's no more kind of gear chip cover. As far as the blades go, I'd say the actual spinning gear chip aspect, and then also the prongs, kind of neutral changes to me, because again, I understand the outward weight distribution idea, even if I'm not the biggest fan of it, I get it. Same with the gear chip thing, because gear chips also have the tendency to be difficult to line up sometimes, if you're just trying to look at it aesthetically. So I kind of get that. Both of these are neutral changes for me, but I don't like the lack of a gear chip cover at all. But I do like the more dynamic shape that these bays have, so yeah, the part changes themselves are not actually that crazy. So, is this really worth a jump in, like product categorization, really. Like, usually we don't see this change. You know, like, obviously, I mean, way back in, like, Balked and Shoot, I believe it changed when they switched to, like, HMS and stuff, or Metal Fight, when we went from, like, you know, the regular Metal Fight base, like, 0G base, Burst, and never changed. So now we're already having a shift, so it always seemed like a big deal. It seems like they're trying to make a big deal out of this more unique line. And does it deserve that? I would argue yes and no, but we'll come back to why it's a bit of a split. Anyway, it definitely feels like they're trying harder with these bays. I feel like they're putting more effort into these bays, which is good. I like that. Again, the bits, like the extreme line, like I mentioned, the extreme line, we need more, you know, gimmicks that interact with it. Of course, I'm like a ring that kind of potentially could bar you, or at least make it harder to use the extreme line in, you know, kind of substituting that for, you know, again, the ring. That's cool. Also, of course, having more spokes on the gear parts, that is also good. Wouldn't mind seeing maybe a different shape, or even like maybe even a different material, like try rubber or something. That could be interesting. Like I have wear issues, but still, you know. Just trying new things with that part, I think, is good. While also trying to make some more unique actual bottom parts, I think, would be important. But yeah. Again, ratchets, keep making more heights, please. We only had 2 for the entirety of the BX line. Finally getting a 3rd. Please keep making more of these. And of course, more contact points, because we could always just use more new ratchets in general, since they are kind of lacking with that. And of course, the blades, well, again, I do have some issues with them. The fact that they're trying at all to make these more dynamic, big deal, I think. So, very, very good. Outside of that, though, I do think that these bays, they don't feel as different. Look at something like Wizard Rod's blade. I think that the blade itself is only different, in my opinion, because it's in the UX style. I think the blade, if you were to change up the blade to make the prongs metal, not have that kind of different colored ring at all, you know, have the gear chip move, have the, you know, the gear chip cover on it, this is a BX bay. I think Hell's Hammer and Drawn Buster are better with this. I think both of these are more dynamic looking. But it does make me wonder, are some of these UX bays just going to be kind of simple? And, you know, again, if you switched the kind of BX stuff for the UX stuff and made it just look normal, would it just be kind of a normal looking bay that has nothing really going on with it? It could be. But I do think so far with Drawn Buster and Hell's Hammer, we have a better track record of bays being more unique than not, so Wizard Rod could just be a one-off case in this way, so we'll see. But again, the fact they're trying is good. My problem, though, why? So obviously, yes, is this a good evolution to BX? I think so, because it's important that we start getting more unique stuff. Here's my problem. We should have had this from the start. Maybe not the very start. Like, I understand, okay, you know what? I'm not talking about, like, the gear chip cover being removed or whatever. I think that should have stayed. But anyway, I think, you know, your basic 4 base, you know, Drawn Sword, Hell Scythe, Wizard Arrow, Night Shield, these being basic, I think, makes sense. Also, fine with things like, you know, Cobalt Drake or Phoenix Feather, kind of the more specialized releases, being kind of normal as well. Even some of the other earlier ones, like, you know, Night Lands or Shark Edge being kind of more simplistic, that's fine. But I think by October, or at least November, the bays need to start getting more unique. Even our big December release, which I talked about in the Phoenix Wing unboxing, remove the paint from the bay and it's a very bland bay. Like, it's a 3-sided attack type with it has a, you know, a new Rancher that came with it, but 960 is not all that interesting overall. And Gear Flat, it's not that crazy either. Remove the paint and it's a pretty basic bay, I think. And that was my problem, is I know that they've kind of renamed, you know, well, I guess fully unveiled the name of BX being a basic X, but I feel like it's too basic. I think these bays, because UX, it's not even that crazy. Again, the ratchets and bits aren't that much crazier. It's kind of just stuff I would have expected to see at some point, probably sooner. And yeah, the blades being a bit more dynamic, I mean, that's cool, but like, I mean, Shark Edge has its own idea. I mean, Drawn Buster, it's a little bit crazier, but still, like, some blades already had their own ideas, and I feel like if maybe they leaned a little bit more into them, you're kind of getting closer to UX already. I feel like we should have just had more effort put into the bays much earlier on, which is why I don't like this. I don't like that they're making a big deal about this. These, to me, like the UX stuff, it's more forced, I think. I think that the the way they're changing the beys, I feel like it's almost for the sake of being like, hey, look, these are different. See, look, no more gear chip cover. It's different, which I don't necessarily agree with. Again, I don't think you needed to remove that, but still. I just wish that maybe they would have done these from the start. I don't think we really needed to have a whole separate line or whatever. Or even, like, they didn't need to separate the lines ever. Like, I just don't think these are crazy enough to warrant it. Even look at, like, burst, like GT, the GT system, part of the normal B line, sure. But, like, look at, like Regalia Genesis. That thing was, like, the infinite lock layer and, like, an electric driver. And that didn't warrant, changing the product codes. But apparently being a little bit more dynamic does. I don't know. I personally just don't really agree with this, and also it makes me worry because in the future, are we gonna stick with BX? Like, are we still getting more BX bays? Are we still gonna get these basic bays sometimes, and then like UX like a special thing? Because like I don't think the UX bays are crazy enough, but at the same time, they're still better though. So I don't want BX bays. I just also don't think that's really worth changing the product codes. I feel like I'm going in circles at this point, but yeah. Bottom line for me, is UX better? For sure. It makes me a little bit more excited for the future of Beyblade X, because I've been someone who's been doubting it a bit for sure. But at the same time, does this feel like a necessary upgrade? Like we had to have it? Yes, but I don't think this should have been how they went about it. I just really think this should have just been a baseline upgrade. That's it. That's all we needed. We don't need to have this being like, oh no, these are unique. Like, no, this should just be how X bays are carried out, because again, I think that the bays being really bland was not enjoyable, and it's why I was so out of X. Like, I know a lot of people really like Beyblade X, that's great, but I know there's a lot of people like me who have been kind of on the fence about it. Like, yeah, I like it, but it's a little bit bland, so I just hope that they do continue with UX stuff, and it's actually like the new main thing. Maybe they have new product codes for every line, which is kind of weird, but sure, I guess. I don't know. Let me know what you think. Do you think UX is a worthwhile upgrade? Again, I do think it is, but at the same time, should it have been conducted in the way that it is? I don't think so. I think this should have just been a natural progression and change for Beyblade X as a whole, and not sort of being separated in this weird way. But again, let me know. Those are just my thoughts on it, so yeah. Anyways, thanks for watching, and bye-bye.